The sun hung low in the sky, painting the countryside with golden hues as Anna drove her sleek white SUV down the winding rural road. It had been her assistant's idea for her to take a break, a rare retreat from the demands of being one of the youngest CEOs of a successful tech startup. Anna wasn't entirely sold on the idea, but she agreed, hoping the quiet might give her time to think. The road ahead stretched endlessly, flanked by sprawling fields and the occasional barn. Her phone buzzed with a series of missed calls and emails, but she ignored them, determined to embrace a moment of solitude. The silence was calming, but it wasn't long before her peaceful drive was interrupted. A loud thunk jolted her from her thoughts. The car veered slightly, as an unmistakable grinding noise echoed through the air. Anna's heart sank. "No, no, no, not now," she muttered, pulling to the side of the road. Stepping out, Anna squinted against the afternoon sun, her heels crunching on the gravel. Sure enough, her front right tire was completely flat, a gash running through the rubber. She sighed, brushing her dark blonde hair away from her face. Back inside the car, she rummaged for the manual, flipping through pages as frustration bubbled up. Changing a tire wasn't exactly part of her skill set. She reached for her phone, only to realize she had no signal. "Perfect," she mumbled, leaning against the hood. The silence of the countryside felt oppressive now, the vast emptiness emphasizing how alone she was. Just as she was about to give up and wait for a passing car, a distant hum caught her attention. A pickup truck appeared on the horizon, its dark green paint glinting in the sunlight. It slowed as it approached, eventually coming to a stop a few feet ahead of her car. The driver's door opened, and out stepped a man, tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in worn jeans and a plain white t-shirt that clung to his muscular frame. His skin was the color of polished mahogany, his face strong and kind. He ran a hand over his close-cropped hair before offering a disarming smile. "You need some help?" he called, his voice deep and warm. Anna hesitated, her corporate instincts cautioning her against trusting strangers. But there was something about his demeanor, calm, approachable, that made her pause. "Yes," she finally admitted, folding her arms. "I have a flat tire, and I don't know how to fix it." The man nodded, stepping closer. "Good thing I do." "Name's David." "Anna," she replied, her voice softer than she intended. David crouched beside the car, inspecting the damaged tire. "It's a bad one, but I can get your spare on. Mind if I grab the tools?" She gestured to the trunk. "Be my guest." As David worked, Anna watched him with a mix of curiosity and gratitude. He moved with practiced ease, loosening bolts and lifting the car with the jack, like it was second nature. Sweat glistened on his brow in the summer heat, but he didn't complain. "Do you do this often?" she asked, breaking the silence. David chuckled. "Flat tires? Not really, but I've fixed my fair share. Comes with living out here. And you just stop to help random people? Why not?" He glanced up, his dark eyes meeting hers. "The world's tough enough. We've all got to help each other when we can." Something in his tone struck a chord with her. In her world of cutthroat meetings and relentless deadlines, kindness like this felt almost foreign. A short while later, David stood, wiping his hands on a rag. "All set. Should get you where you're going, at least until you can get a proper replacement." Anna opened her purse, pulling out a crisp $100 bill. "Thank you. Let me pay you for your trouble." David shook his head firmly. "No need for that. Please," she insisted, holding the bill out. He stepped back, his smile unwavering. "I didn't do it for money. Just glad I could help." With that, he gave her a polite nod, climbed back into his truck, and drove off, leaving a trail of dust behind him. Anna stood there for a moment, the bill still in her hand. A strange warmth spread through her chest, gratitude mixed with something else she couldn't quite name. As the truck disappeared into the distance, she realized she was smiling. Sliding back into her car, Anna started the engine and pulled back onto the road. But no matter how much she tried to focus on the drive ahead, her thoughts kept drifting to the man who had stopped to help her. David. Who was he? Why did his words, his actions, linger in her mind? She couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the last time their paths would cross. Anna leaned back in the plush leather chair of her downtown apartment, gazing out at the glittering city skyline. The hum of traffic below blended with the faint buzz of her phone on the coffee table, but her mind was far from the chaos of her usual world. Instead, it was stuck on him, David. She didn't even know his last name, yet the memory of his easy smile and kind eyes refused to leave her. Anna prided herself on being composed, always one step ahead. But something about that encounter had thrown her off balance. Why couldn't she stop thinking about him? With a frustrated sigh, Anna reached for her laptop, deciding to distract herself with work. Her inbox was overflowing with updates from her team, investors, and potential clients. She opened the first email, but the words blurred together. Her mind drifted back to the way David had declined her money with a simple, "I didn't do it for that." Who even says things like that these days? "Focus, Anna," she muttered, shaking her head. Her distraction didn't go unnoticed. Later that evening, as she sipped wine with her best friend Marissa at a rooftop bar, Anna's preoccupation came to light. "You've been zoning out all night," Marissa teased, twirling the stem of her glass. "What's going on? Did the market crash? Or did some investor finally get under your skin?" Anna hesitated, staring down at her drink. "It's not work." Marissa's perfectly arched eyebrows shot up. "Not work? Whoa, what's got the great Anna Bennett so rattled?" Anna gave a half smile, swirling the wine in her glass. "I met someone. Kind of." Marissa leaned forward eagerly. "Oh, this is new. Spill. Who is he?" "It's nothing really," Anna began, reluctant but unable to stop herself. "I got a flat tire yesterday on some random country road. A guy stopped to help me, fixed it without a second thought, wouldn't take any money, and just left." Marissa blinked. "So, like a Good Samaritan situation?" "Yeah," Anna said, but her tone was laced with something deeper. Marissa studied her friend. "And now you can't stop thinking about him?" Anna sighed, leaning back. "It's just weird. I meet people all the time, investors, partners, competitors, and I know exactly what they want. There's always an angle, but him, he didn't want anything. He just helped me and left, like it was no big deal." Marissa grinned knowingly. "Sounds like someone made an impression. Was he cute?" Anna hesitated, remembering the way David's shirt clung to his muscular frame and the warmth in his eyes when he looked at her. Her cheeks flushed slightly. "Maybe a little," she admitted. Marissa's laugh echoed across the rooftop. "Oh, Anna, you've got it bad. I say go find him." Anna shook her head, brushing the idea aside. "He lives out in the middle of nowhere. What would I even say? Hey, remember me? The girl with the flat tire?" Marissa shrugged. "Why not? You've got nothing to lose. Worst case, he's just as nice as you remember, and best case—" She trailed off, her grin widening. Anna rolled her eyes but couldn't help smiling. "You're impossible." That night, as she lay in bed, Marissa's words echoed in her mind. Why not? It was a ridiculous idea. She had no reason to go back there, but what if she did? Meanwhile, in the countryside, David sat on the porch of his modest home, the cool evening breeze carrying the scent of wildflowers and freshly tilled soil. He sipped a glass of sweet tea, his calloused hands resting on the armrests of his weathered chair. His thoughts wandered to the woman he'd helped earlier, Anna. He didn't know much about her, but she had an air about her that was hard to ignore. Polished, confident, yet somehow vulnerable. She'd seemed surprised by his refusal to take her money, and he couldn't blame her. In his experience, people like her, city folk with sleek cars and designer clothes, weren't used to being helped without a price tag attached. But David wasn't one to overthink things. He had done what he always did. Helped because it was the right thing to do. Still, he couldn't deny a flicker of curiosity. Who was she really? Daughter Mom. Anna's curiosity deepens. The next morning, Anna stood in front of her office window, staring down at the bustling streets. She had planned to dive into work, but her thoughts kept circling back to David and the quiet sincerity of the countryside. On impulse, she grabbed her keys and headed to her car. She didn't have a concrete plan, but she told herself it was just a drive, a chance to clear her head. Yet, as she navigated back to the rural road where she'd been stranded, her heart raced with anticipation. When she reached the familiar stretch of road, she slowed down, scanning the horizon. Fields of tall grass swayed in the breeze, and a few scattered houses dotted the landscape. She passed a small farmer's market and, on a whim, decided to stop. It was bustling with locals, their laughter and chatter filling the air. As she wandered through the stalls, admiring the fresh produce and homemade goods, a familiar figure caught her eye. David. He was helping an older woman load crates of vegetables into her truck, his easy smile as genuine as she remembered. Anna froze, her heart pounding. For a moment she considered leaving before he noticed her, but then their eyes met, and his expression shifted to one of surprise, and something else she couldn't quite place. "Anna?" he said, stepping toward her. Her breath caught. "Hi, David. What brings you out here?" he asked, his tone light but curious. She hesitated, then smiled. "I guess I just wanted to say thank you." "Properly." David studied her for a moment before nodding. "Well, it's good to see you again. How's the car?" "Running perfectly, thanks to you," she replied, her smile widening. David chuckled, shaking his head. It wasn't much. But to Anna, it was. As they stood there, surrounded by the lively hum of the market, Anna realized she didn't want to leave this time. The lively hum of the farmer's market wrapped around Anna as she stood in front of David, her carefully polished composure giving way to a mix of nervousness and curiosity. She hadn't planned this far ahead, hadn't thought about what she'd say if she actually saw him. But there he was. David, the man who had lingered in her mind since their brief encounter, stood before her, his broad shoulders slightly hunched as if he were trying to make himself less intimidating. There was no pretension in the way he carried himself, no flashy exterior to hide behind, just him. "I didn't expect to see you again," David said, a lopsided smile tugging at his lips. Anna returned the smile, her heart fluttering. "I could say the same. I figured you'd be busy helping someone else by now." David chuckled, the sound warm and genuine. "Well, there's always someone who could use a hand around here. Keeps me busy." They stood there for a moment, the conversation suspended between them as the world around them buzzed with activity. Anna glanced at the crates of vegetables David had been loading moments before. "Do you work here?" she asked, gesturing toward the stall. "Not exactly," David replied, leaning casually against the truck. "I just help out when I can. Mrs. Jenkins, you met her a second ago, runs this stall. She's been doing it for years, and lifting these crates isn't as easy for her anymore." Anna couldn't hide her admiration. "You seem to help a lot of people." David shrugged, the motion as humble as his tone. "That's what a community is for, isn't it? We all look out for each other." His words struck a chord in Anna. She had spent years surrounded by ambition and competition, where every interaction came with unspoken expectations. David's world was refreshingly different, a place where kindness wasn't transactional. "Can I help?" she asked suddenly, surprising even herself. David blinked, clearly not expecting the offer. "Help?" "With the crates," she clarified, stepping closer. "I mean, I'm not exactly dressed for it, but I think I can manage." David chuckled, shaking his head. "I appreciate the offer, but I wouldn't want you to ruin those shoes." Anna glanced down at her pristine white sneakers and smiled sheepishly. "Fair point, but I'm serious. I'd like to help." There was a pause as David considered her, his expression softening. "All right," he said finally, "but don't say I didn't warn you." A glimpse into David's world. Anna found herself swept into the rhythm of the market, helping David load crates, carry bags for customers, and even organize the produce on the table. It was messy, sweaty work, and Anna was acutely aware of the amused glances from the locals, who clearly found her presence unusual. David, however, seemed at ease. He introduced her to the other vendors, casually explaining how the market worked and sharing stories about the community. Anna listened intently, feeling a sense of warmth she hadn't realized she'd been missing. "You're a natural," David teased as they finished loading the last crate into Mrs. Jenkins's truck. Anna laughed, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "I wouldn't go that far. But it's nice doing something different for a change." David studied her for a moment, his gaze thoughtful. "I imagine your life doesn't leave a lot of room for this kind of thing." "No," Anna admitted, leaning against the truck. "Most of my days are back-to-back meetings, endless emails, and late nights at the office." "And you like that?" The question caught her off guard. It wasn't accusatory, just curious, but it made her pause. "I used to," she said after a moment. "I love what I do, but lately, I don't know. Something feels like it's missing." David nodded, as if he understood. "It's easy to get caught up in what you're chasing and forget what you already have." His words hung in the air, heavier than she expected. Anna didn't know how to respond, so she simply nodded. An unexpected invitation. As the market began to wind down, David turned to Anna. "You've done more than enough for today. Let me buy you a drink, or at least a cup of coffee. The least I can do after you volunteered to work for free." Anna smiled, surprised by the offer. "You don't have to do that." "I know," David said, his grin returning. "But it's not every day someone like you ends up here. Humor me." She hesitated, but the sincerity in his voice made her decision easy. "All right. Coffee sounds nice." They walked to a small cafe just off the main road, the kind of place Anna would never have noticed on her own. It was cozy, with mismatched chairs and the smell of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. David ordered for them, and they settled into a corner table. "So," David said, leaning back in his chair, "what brought you out here in the first place? You don't seem like the type to just stumble into the countryside." Anna laughed softly. "You're right. I needed a break. My assistant suggested it, and I figured, why not? It's different here. Quiet. Peaceful." "Different isn't bad," David said, taking a sip of his coffee. "Sometimes it's exactly what you need." Anna looked at him, her curiosity growing. "What about you? Have you always lived here?" David nodded. "Born and raised. It's not much, but it's home. My parents worked hard to build a life here, and now it's my turn to do the same." The simplicity of his answer struck Anna. "And you're happy here?" David considered her question, then smiled. "I am. Life's not easy, but it's honest. There's something satisfying about knowing the people around you, about being part of something bigger than yourself." Anna envied him in that moment. Her success had brought her wealth, power, and recognition, but it hadn't brought her the kind of contentment David described. A connection forms. Their conversation stretched into the afternoon, the hours slipping by unnoticed. Anna found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected, sharing stories about her childhood, her struggles as a young CEO, and her fears of losing touch with what truly mattered. David listened, his quiet attentiveness both comforting and disarming. By the time they left the cafe, Anna felt lighter, as if a part of her she hadn't realized was missing had been restored. As they stood by her car, she turned to him. "Thank you, David, for today, for everything." David smiled, his hands in his pockets. "Any time." Anna hesitated, a part of her not wanting to leave. Maybe I'll see you around. David's smile widened. I hope so. As she drove away, Anna glanced in the rearview mirror, watching as David grew smaller and smaller until he was just a silhouette against the countryside. But this time, she knew for sure. It wouldn't be the last time they saw each other. Anna's return to the city was anything but ordinary. Her polished routines, morning lattes, executive meetings, late nights analyzing market trends, felt oddly hollow. She caught herself staring out of her office window more often, her thoughts drifting back to the small cafe, the hum of the farmer's market, and, most of all, David's warm smile. Her assistant, Chloe, had noticed the change. Let me guess, Chloe teased, dropping a stack of files on Anna's desk. You've got that faraway look because you're thinking about a guy. Anna arched an eyebrow but didn't deny it. Chloe gasped. Oh my God, I'm right. Spill! It's not what you think, Anna replied, but the pink flush on her cheeks betrayed her. He's just different, kind, honest, nothing like anyone I've met before. Chloe grinned. Sounds like someone worth knowing. So, what are you going to do about it? The question lingered long after Chloe left. What was she going to do? A decision made by the end of the week, Anna had her answer. With her schedule clear for the weekend, she packed a small bag and set out for the countryside. She told herself it was just a casual visit, maybe a chance to explore the market again, but deep down, she knew better. When she arrived, the market was bustling as usual, but David wasn't at Mrs. Jenkins's stall. Disappointed but determined, she asked around and was eventually directed to a nearby community center. The building was modest, its faded paint and worn steps a testament to years of use. Inside, Anna found David surrounded by a group of children, laughing as he helped them paint a mural on the wall. For a moment, she stood unnoticed, watching him. His patience, his genuine care, it all confirmed what she had felt since their first meeting. David finally glanced her way and froze, surprise lighting up his face. Anna, he said, stepping toward her. What are you doing here? She shrugged, a playful smile tugging at her lips. I guess I couldn't stay away. David chuckled, shaking his head. Well, welcome back. You're just in time to help us out. Before she could protest, a small hand tugged at her sleeve. A little girl with pigtails held out a paintbrush, her eyes wide with excitement. Here, the girl said, you can help me paint the sun. Anna hesitated, glancing at David, who grinned. You heard her. Immersing in David's world, Anna spent the afternoon painting, laughing, and learning about the community. David explained that the center served as a safe space for children while their parents worked. We do what we can, David said, his voice tinged with quiet pride. But there's always more to be done. As Anna listened, she felt a growing admiration for him. He wasn't just kind, he was deeply committed to making a difference. Later, as the children filtered out and the sun dipped low in the sky, David and Anna sat on the center steps, sharing a moment of quiet. Do you ever get tired? Anna asked, breaking the silence. Of what? Of giving so much. David looked at her, his expression thoughtful. It's not about how much you give. It's about why you give. I've been lucky in some ways, having people who cared enough to help me when I needed it. Now it's my turn. Anna stared at him, her chest tightening. His selflessness was as inspiring as it was humbling. The start of something more. As they talked, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. David teased Anna about her painting skills, and she fired back with stories of her misadventures in the corporate world. You're not what I expected, David admitted after a while. Anna tilted her head. What did you expect? David hesitated, then smiled. Someone a little more guarded, but you're surprisingly easy to talk to. Anna felt her cheeks warm. That's because you're easy to talk to, too. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to fall away. But just as the tension thickened, David broke the gaze, clearing his throat. I should get going, he said, standing. Anna followed suit, her heart sinking slightly. Right, me too. But as David walked her to her car, he paused, glancing at her. You're welcome here any time, Anna. She smiled, a small flicker of hope reigniting. I'll hold you to that. Unspoken feelings. Over the next few weeks, Anna found excuses to return to the countryside. She told herself it was to help at the community center or to escape the city, but every time, her visits revolved around David. Their bond deepened with each encounter. They shared stories, laughter, and the occasional heated debate, but beneath it all was an unspoken tension neither dared to address. Anna felt herself drawn to him in ways she hadn't expected. His grounded nature, his warmth, and the way he cared for his community. It was everything she hadn't realized she wanted. David, for his part, struggled with his feelings. He admired Anna's drive and vulnerability, but a part of him worried their worlds were too different. What could he possibly offer someone like her? The Uwanda challenges begin to surface. The first crack in their idyllic bubble came during one of Anna's visits. She was helping David organize supplies at the center when her phone buzzed incessantly. Important? David asked casually, though Anna could hear the tension in his voice. She glanced at the screen, emails from her board, demanding updates on a new partnership. Anna sighed. It can wait. But David wasn't convinced. Anna, this is your life. You can't just ignore it. Why not? She replied, her voice sharper than intended. Why is it so hard for me to take a break? David stepped back, his expression guarded. I didn't mean it like that. I just don't want you to regret being here. Anna's frustration melted as quickly as it had flared. She reached for his arm, her touch gentle. I don't regret it, not for a second. David's gaze softened, but the moment was interrupted by another buzz from her phone. This time, Anna silenced it completely, determined to focus on the present. Yerdanga moment of truth. Later that evening, as they stood by her car, Anna hesitated. David, do you ever think about what this is? He looked at her, his brow furrowing. What do you mean? This, she said, gesturing between them. Us. David's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Anna thought he wouldn't answer. But then he sighed, his voice low. I think about it all the time. Her heart skipped. And I don't know if it's fair to either of us, he admitted. Your world, my world. They're so different. Anna stepped closer, her voice firm. So what? I don't care about the differences, David. I care about you. His eyes searched hers, torn between hope and doubt. Anna. But before he could finish, she leaned up and pressed a kiss to his cheek. A promise of more to come. Think about it, she whispered, climbing into her car. As she drove away, David stood rooted to the spot, his hand brushing the place where her lips had been. For the first time, he allowed himself to hope. The morning sun bathed the countryside in golden light as David stood on the porch of the community center, his thoughts still lingering on the kiss Anna had left on his cheek the night before. It wasn't just the gesture itself. It was the courage behind it, the unspoken promise it carried. But with that hope came a tangle of doubts. David had spent his life building a foundation in this town, one rooted in hard work and a commitment to helping others. Could he risk his heart for someone whose world seemed so far removed from his own? As he mulled it over, the sound of tires crunching on gravel pulled him from his thoughts. A sleek black SUV came into view, unmistakably out of place among the trucks and sedans that usually filled the lot. Anna stepped out, looking radiant even in casual clothes, her hair pulled back and a determined expression on her face. David's breath caught for a moment, but he quickly masked it with a welcoming smile. "Back so soon?" he teased as she approached. "You said I was welcome any time," Anna shot back with a grin, standing beside him. David chuckled, motioning toward the door. "Always. Come on in." A plan in motion. Inside the community center, Anna joined David and a group of volunteers as they prepped for the day's activities. She noticed the cracked tiles on the floor, the peeling paint on the walls, and the outdated equipment in the kitchen. "How do you manage all this?" she asked, gesturing around the room. David shrugged, his tone casual but resolute. "We make do with what we have. The kids need a place like this, so we figure it out." Anna's heart ached at his matter-of-fact response. She admired his resilience, but she couldn't ignore the reality. The center needed more resources than it currently had. Later, as they worked together to sort donations, Anna broached the subject cautiously. "David," she began, her voice soft, "have you ever thought about expanding, finding more funding for the center?" David paused, glancing at her. "Of course, but funding's hard to come by out here. Most grants go to bigger towns or cities. People forget about places like this." Anna hesitated, then pressed on. "What if I helped? My company has connections, and I could use them to bring more attention to this place. We could raise money, maybe even renovate the building." David's brows furrowed. "Anna, that's generous, but your world moves fast, and this place moves slow. You don't have to do this just because you feel sorry for us." "Sorry?" Anna said, a little sharper than she intended. "David, this isn't about pity. It's about helping people who deserve it. People like you, who've given so much without expecting anything in return." David searched her face, his expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded. "If you really want to help, we'll find a way to make it work." A misstep. Anna threw herself into the project, leveraging her business network to drum up interest. She organized meetings, reached out to local officials, and even enlisted Chloe to help with logistics. But as the plans gained momentum, cracks began to show. During a lunch break at the community center, Anna and David sat on the porch, reviewing some of her proposals. "This one's about hosting a gala in the city," Anna explained, tapping a folder. "It could bring in a lot of donations, and it'll give people a chance to see what we're doing here." David frowned, flipping through the pages. "A gala? With investors in suits? Anna, this town isn't about glitz and glamour. It's about people helping people. I'm not sure this is the right approach." "It's not about glamour," Anna insisted. "It's about raising awareness. These people, donors, investors, they have resources. They can make a real difference." David set the folder down, his tone firm. "Maybe, but if this becomes about what they want instead of what the community needs, we'll lose the whole point of what we're doing." Anna sighed, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "I'm just trying to help." "I know," David said, softer now, "but we have to do it the right way." Misunderstandings grow. As the gala plans moved forward, Anna found herself pulled between two worlds. Her corporate team wanted polished presentations and carefully crafted pitches, while David wanted to keep the focus on the community itself. The tension came to a head during a meeting with a potential donor. "Of course, we'll highlight the work being done," Anna explained, gesturing to a slick PowerPoint presentation. "But the gala will also showcase the future, what this town could become with the right investment." The donor nodded approvingly, but David, sitting beside her, stiffened. After the meeting, he confronted her. "You're selling a dream, Anna," he said, his voice laced with frustration. "But it's their dream, not ours." Anna bristled. "I'm trying to make people care, David. Isn't that what you want?" "What I want," he replied, his tone steady, "is for the people here to feel seen and valued, not turned into a pitch for investors. The weight of his words hung between them. "I'm sorry," Anna said after a moment, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to overstep." David softened, his gaze meeting hers. "I know your heart's in the right place, but if we're going to do this, we need to do it together." A path forward. Chastened but not deterred, Anna took a step back to reevaluate. She spent more time listening to the community, learning about their needs and dreams. With David's help, she reshaped the gala to focus on the town's story, highlighting the people who made it special. The night of the event, David stood in a borrowed suit, fidgeting as he watched the well-dressed crowd mingle. "Relax," Anna whispered, appearing at his side in a simple yet elegant dress. "You're going to do great." David glanced at her, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Only because you wouldn't let me back out." The gala was a success, raising enough money to not only renovate the community center, but also fund new programs for the children. But more importantly, it brought David and Anna closer together, their partnership deepening as they realized how much they could accomplish as a team. Unspoken fears. As the evening wound down, Anna and David stepped onto the balcony, looking out at the city lights. "This is just the beginning," Anna said, her voice filled with quiet determination. David nodded but remained silent. "What is it?" Anna asked, sensing his hesitation. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I just wonder, what happens when you go back to your world, when this is all over?" Anna reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "This isn't just a project for me, David. It's more than that." Their eyes met, and in that moment, the unspoken feelings between them felt undeniable. "Maybe," David said, his voice softer now, "we can figure out what more looks like together." Anna smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I'd like that." For the first time, the future felt like something they could share. The success of the gala marked a turning point, not just for the community, but for Anna and David. Their bond deepened as they worked side by side to implement the changes the fundraiser had made possible. Renovations began at the community center, scholarships were created for local kids, and a small health clinic was funded, bringing much-needed resources to the area. For the first time, David felt like his dreams for his hometown were within reach. And for Anna, the experience had become more than an escape from the corporate world. It had become a passion. But amidst the progress, there was an unspoken tension between them. Despite their growing connection, David remained hesitant. He couldn't help but question whether their relationship could survive beyond the confines of the project. A day of reflection. One Saturday morning, Anna joined David at the community center. Workers were hammering away at the new roof, and volunteers were painting the exterior. Anna had traded her usual tailored outfits for jeans and a t-shirt, her hair tied back as she helped carry supplies. "Careful," David teased as she wobbled under the weight of a heavy paint can. "We don't want the CEO getting injured on the job." Anna rolled her eyes, laughing. "I'm tougher than I look, David." He smiled, watching her set the paint can down. "I'll give you that." They took a break under the shade of a large oak tree, sipping lemonade that one of the volunteers had brought. "This place is really coming together," Anna said, glancing at the nearly finished roof. David nodded. "It is. I can't thank you enough for everything you've done." Anna turned to him, her expression serious. "You don't have to thank me, David. This isn't just your dream anymore. It's mine too." Her words hung in the air, their weight undeniable. David looked at her, his brow furrowing slightly. "I mean it," Anna continued. "I've never felt this connected to something before, or to someone." David's heart raced, but he hesitated. "Anna, I—" Before he could finish, a volunteer called out, breaking the moment. "David, we need your help with the scaffolding." David sighed, giving Anna an apologetic look. "Hold that thought." As he walked away, Anna felt a pang of frustration. She couldn't ignore the wall he kept putting up, and she was determined to find a way through it. A surprise visit. The next day, Anna decided to dig deeper into David's world. She visited his home unannounced, arriving just as the afternoon sun bathed the modest house in warm light. David answered the door, surprised but not displeased to see her. "Anna," he said, stepping aside to let her in. "What brings you here?" "I wanted to see where you live," she admitted, glancing around the cozy living room. It was simple, but full of personality. Family photos on the walls, books stacked neatly on shelves, and the faint scent of freshly brewed coffee lingering in the air. David seemed slightly embarrassed. "It's not much, but it's home." "It's perfect," Anna said sincerely. As they sat on the couch, Anna asked him about his childhood, his parents, and what had driven him to stay in the town when so many others had left. "I've thought about leaving," David admitted, staring down at his hands. "But every time I did, something pulled me back. My parents always said that if you see something worth fixing, you don't walk away, you stay and make it better." Anna smiled. "They must be proud of you." David's expression softened. "I hope so." There was a pause before Anna spoke again. "You know, you're one of the most selfless people I've ever met. But sometimes I wish you'd let yourself be a little selfish." David looked at her, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Anna said, her voice steady, "you deserve happiness too. You deserve to take chances, even if they scare you." Her words struck a chord, and for the first time, David let himself imagine what it would be like to put his guard down completely. The big gesture. A few days later, David surprised Anna with a visit to the city. He had called ahead, asking her to meet him at a park near her apartment. When she arrived, he was waiting for her, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. "David," Anna said, her heart skipping a beat. "What are you doing here?" "I figured it was time I stepped into your world for a change," he said, handing her the flowers. Anna smiled, touched by the gesture. "Thank you. They're beautiful." As they walked through the park, David opened up in a way he never had before. "You were right," he said. "I've been holding back because I didn't think us, could work. But I don't want to be afraid anymore. I want to see where this goes." Anna stopped walking, turning to face him. "David, I've been waiting for you to say that." He reached for her hand, his touch warm and steady. "I'm still figuring things out, but I know one thing for sure. I don't want to lose you." Anna's eyes glistened as she smiled. "You won't." Their kiss was soft and slow, filled with all the emotions they had been holding back. In that moment, the noise of the city faded away, leaving only the two of them. Moving forward. Together from that day on, Anna and David's relationship became a partnership in every sense of the word. They spent their weekends in the countryside, working on the community projects, and their weekdays in the city, where Anna introduced David to her world. David's down-to-earth perspective brought a refreshing honesty to Anna's corporate environment, and Anna's drive and ambition inspired David to dream even bigger for his community. Their differences, once a source of uncertainty, became their greatest strength. Sutter chose for a new dream. As the renovations at the community center neared completion, David approached Anna with an idea. "What if we started a foundation?" he suggested. "Not just for this town, but for other places like it. We could help more communities get the resources they need." Anna's eyes lit up. "I love it. We could combine my connections with your experience on the ground. It could be something incredible." They spent hours brainstorming, their excitement building with each new idea. For the first time, they weren't just building something for the present. They were building a future together. A promise of forever. One evening, as the sun set over the town, David took Anna to the newly renovated community center. The building gleamed with fresh paint, and the sound of children's laughter echoed inside. As they stood in the doorway, David turned to Anna, his expression serious. "You've changed my life," he said, "in ways I didn't think were possible. And I don't want to imagine my life without you in it." Anna's breath caught as David pulled a small box from his pocket. "I know we come from different worlds, but I think we've built something worth fighting for. Anna, will you marry me?" Tears filled Anna's eyes as she smiled. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The cheers of the townspeople erupted behind them, and as they embraced, Anna and David knew that this was just the beginning of their journey, a journey defined by love, purpose, and a shared dream of making the world a better place. The days following David's proposal were filled with an intoxicating mix of celebration and purpose. The community rallied around the couple, eager to support not just their union, but their shared vision for the town's future. For Anna and David, the engagement felt like more than a personal milestone. It was a declaration of their commitment to blending their worlds and using their strengths to create something meaningful. But as the excitement settled, reality crept in. With their ambitious plans to start a foundation, the challenges of balancing their two lives became more apparent. With the launch of the foundation, Anna's penthouse apartment became the unofficial headquarters for their new initiative, the Bridges Foundation. The name reflected their goal of connecting rural communities with the resources they needed to thrive. David spent his days in the countryside, working closely with the townspeople to identify the most pressing needs. Meanwhile, Anna juggled meetings with investors and potential donors, leveraging her corporate connections to secure funding. One evening, as Anna typed away at her laptop, David called her from the community center. His voice was tired but hopeful. "We've got 3 families in town who need housing repairs," he said. "But the budget's tight after the renovations." Anna frowned, scanning her spreadsheet. "I'll talk to our contacts tomorrow. Maybe we can adjust the allocation for the education fund." David hesitated. "Are we spreading ourselves too thin? I don't want to promise more than we can deliver." Anna paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Maybe. But we'll find a way, David. We always do." Their conversations often ended this way, balancing practicality with ambition, learning to navigate their shared responsibilities while respecting each other's perspectives. A clash of worlds. As their foundation grew, so did the pressure. Anna's corporate background often clashed with David's grassroots approach. During a strategy meeting at the community center, tensions reached a boiling point. "We need to think long-term," Anna argued, her voice steady but firm. "A major investor could fund multiple projects at once, instead of us scraping by with small donations." David crossed his arms, his jaw tightening. "And what happens when those investors start making demands? We've seen how that can change things, Anna. This isn't just numbers, it's people's lives." The room fell silent as the volunteers exchanged uneasy glances. Anna sighed, softening her tone. "I'm not saying we let them take over. I just think we should explore every option." David shook his head, his voice quieter now. "Sometimes the best option is the one that stays true to what we're trying to build." The conversation ended with an uneasy truce, but the underlying tension lingered. Rediscovering their why. The strain began to weigh on Anna, and one sleepless night, she found herself staring out her apartment window, the city lights flickering like distant stars. Chloe's voice echoed in her mind. "Why are you doing this?" She realized she needed to step back and remember the heart of their mission. The next morning, Anna drove out to the countryside unannounced. She found David at the community center, surrounded by children who were drawing on freshly painted walls. "Hey," she said softly, catching his attention. David looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Anna, what are you doing here?" "I needed a reminder," she admitted, stepping closer, "of why we're doing this." David's expression softened, and he stood, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Come on, there's something I want to show you." A moment of clarity. David led Anna to a field on the outskirts of town. The sun was setting, casting the landscape in hues of orange and gold. In the distance, she could see a small farmhouse with a weathered barn and children playing in the yard. "That's the Johnson family," David said, his voice low. "They've been struggling ever since Mr. Johnson got injured. We helped repair their roof last month, and now they've got a safe place to raise their kids." Anna watched as the family laughed together, the children chasing each other around the barn. "This," David continued, turning to her, "is why we're doing this. It's not about the big numbers or the fancy presentations. It's about moments like this." Anna felt a lump in her throat as she nodded. "You're right. I've been so focused on scaling up that I forgot what makes this meaningful." David reached for her hand, his touch grounding her. "We're figuring this out together. That's all that matters." A renewed partnership. With their priorities realigned, Anna and David found a rhythm that worked. They divided responsibilities, ensuring that neither lost sight of the foundation's purpose. Anna's expertise brought in larger donations, while David's authenticity ensured the community's voice remained at the center of every decision. One afternoon, as they worked on the foundation's first annual report, Anna looked over at David. "You know," she said with a smile, "we make a pretty good team." David grinned, leaning back in his chair. "I'd say we're unstoppable." Celebrating progress. A few months later, the foundation hosted a community event to celebrate their progress. The renovated community center was the focal point, its fresh paint and new roof gleaming in the sunlight. Families gathered in the yard, enjoying food, music, and games. Children laughed as they raced each other, while adults shared stories of how the foundation had impacted their lives. Anna stood by David's side, her heart swelling with pride as she watched the joy unfolding around them. "This is amazing," she said, leaning against him. David wrapped an arm around her, his voice filled with quiet gratitude. "We couldn't have done it without you." "We couldn't have done it without each other," Anna replied. A vision for the future. As the sun set and the crowd began to disperse, Anna and David sat on the steps of the community center, their fingers intertwined. "What's next?" Anna asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. David smiled, glancing at her. "We keep building, not just here, but wherever people need help, and we do it our way." Anna nodded, a sense of calm settling over her. "Together." "Always," David said, pressing a kiss to her temple. As the stars began to fill the night sky, Anna and David knew they had found something rare, a partnership rooted in love, respect, and a shared commitment to making the world a better place. The morning dawned crisp and bright, with the kind of quiet energy that hinted at something special. In the heart of the town, the newly renovated community center stood proudly, its vibrant blue exterior reflecting the clear skies above. Inside, preparations were underway for a grand event, the official launch of the Bridges Foundation. For Anna and David, it wasn't just another milestone. It was the culmination of months of work, compromise, and a shared dream finally taking shape. A town transformed. The transformation of the community was evident. New homes had been repaired, the local school had received upgraded supplies, and the clinic now had modern equipment and a full-time nurse. The town's spirit, once weighed down by struggles, now brimmed with hope. David stood outside the community center, watching volunteers set up chairs and tables. Bunting hung between lampposts, and the smell of fresh-baked pies wafted from nearby stalls. Families were arriving in droves, their laughter and chatter filling the air. Anna approached, her hand brushing his arm. "It's amazing, isn't it?" David turned to her, his smile warm. "It is, and it's all because of you." She shook her head. "No, it's because of us. This wouldn't exist without your heart." David's eyes softened, and he leaned down to kiss her forehead. "You make me believe anything's possible." At the grand launch, by midday the event was in full swing. A makeshift stage had been set up in front of the community center, and the crowd gathered to hear Anna and David speak. David took the microphone first, his deep voice carrying easily over the crowd. "When I was growing up here, this town was everything to me," he began. "It taught me the value of hard work, community, and perseverance. But there were times when we felt forgotten, like no one was listening." He glanced at Anna, who gave him an encouraging nod. "Then someone came into my life who reminded me that change is possible, and that even the smallest act of kindness can grow into something much bigger." The crowd erupted into applause, and David handed the microphone to Anna. She took a deep breath, her polished confidence shining through as she addressed the crowd. "When I first came here, I thought I was just taking a break from the chaos of my life," she said. "But what I found was so much more. I found a community that welcomed me, inspired me, and taught me what it truly means to give back." Her voice grew steadier as she continued. "The Bridges Foundation isn't just about resources or projects. It's about connection, about building bridges between people, between communities, and between dreams and reality." The applause that followed was thunderous, and as Anna stepped back, David reached for her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. A surprise announcement. After the speeches, Anna and David mingled with the crowd, sharing stories and laughter. But as the sun began to set, David gathered everyone's attention once more. "There's one more thing I'd like to share," he said, his voice steady, despite the nerves tightening in his chest. "Anna and I have spent the past year building something together. Not just this foundation, but a life we both believe in." He turned to Anna, his eyes sparkling. "And we've decided we don't want to wait any longer to make it official." Gasps of delight rippled through the crowd as David dropped to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. "Anna Bennett," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "will you marry me, again, in front of everyone who matters most to us?" Anna's hands flew to her mouth, tears springing to her eyes. "Yes," she managed, her voice trembling with joy. The crowd cheered as David slid the ring onto her finger, and Anna pulled him into a fierce embrace. A celebration of love. The evening turned into an impromptu celebration, with music, dancing, and food shared under strings of twinkling lights. The townspeople toasted to Anna and David, their joy infectious. David's mother, a wise and warm woman who had been watching from the sidelines, approached Anna during a quiet moment. "You've brought something special to this town," she said, her voice gentle. "And to my son. Thank you for that." Anna smiled, her throat tightening with emotion. "It's your son who's shown me what really matters. I'm the lucky one." David joined them, wrapping an arm around Anna's waist. His mother smiled knowingly before slipping away to rejoin the festivities. A shared future. As the night wore on and the crowd thinned, Anna and David found themselves sitting on the steps of the community center, gazing up at the stars. "This place has changed so much," Anna said softly, "but I think it's changed me even more." David nodded, his gaze steady. "It's changed both of us, and it's only the beginning." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Anna spoke again. "What's next for us?" she asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. David smiled. "We keep going. There are other towns out there that need help, other bridges to build." Anna rested her head on his shoulder, a sense of calm washing over her. "I'm ready. So am I, David said, his voice full of quiet conviction. Ararachting, a new chapter. In the weeks that followed, Anna and David's life became a seamless blend of their worlds. They balanced their time between the city and the countryside, always finding ways to bring their passion for change into everything they did. The Bridges Foundation expanded, supporting projects in neighboring communities and inspiring others to join their mission. But no matter how busy their lives became, Anna and David never lost sight of what brought them together: a shared belief in the power of kindness, resilience, and connection. As they stood hand in hand at the edge of the town, watching the children play in front of the newly renovated community center, Anna turned to David. "This is exactly where we're supposed to be," she said. David smiled, his voice steady and full of love. "And we're just getting started."